All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's November 3rd, 2021. My name's Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team and showing them the ropes. So if that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, we host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to our YouTube channel. So if you want to share it with your team, that's a really quick and easy way to do that. We'll also follow up with an email so you can share it with your team. So if you haven't already registered for our weekly office hours, head over to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours. Let's jump into some announcements. So one of our customers brought up another tool for detecting deprecated APIs in your Kubernetes clusters. This is clearly becoming more and more of an issue because of how operators work, that you need to make sure you keep your versions up to date. And when you update an operator, you won't necessarily know what you break in doing so. The errors can be silent if you automatically update it. It's also a problem if you're upgrading your EKS clusters and you have services deployed that are using outdated API versions, they're going to be affected. So before you perform any sorts of upgrades, we recommend running, well, in this case, we recommend, or what we have been recommending has been a tool called Fairwinds Pluto. Which will scan all your Kubernetes namespaces and look for deprecated versions. And well, there's another tool by Do It International that was brought to our attention. Cube No Trouble, it's called. It's also a simple tool. Haven't tried it out yet, but it looks nice for pointing out API versions in use that are deprecated by given deployments or pods or ingresses. All right. The next exciting announcement was Amazon EKS now supports as a first-class citizen Amazon's new minimal operating system called Bottlerocket. This is different from Amazon Linux. Amazon Linux being like a CentOS-based distribution. Bottlerocket is built from the ground up just to be minimal, almost like CoreOS was minimal. I guess Bottlerocket's technically even more minimal than CoreOS ever was. The idea with Bottlerocket is to speed up your boot times dramatically by having the minimal set of binaries on the base image. It's to provide a more secure image with less of an attack surface for compliance. Now, one of the, so from a pure technical perspective, Bottlerocket is a great choice from a security point of view. The downside is it still doesn't have like a CIS badge on it. So like if your company is looking for CIS compliance, while Bottlerocket will probably check off all the boxes, it's not technically CIS benchmark compliant. So any sort of CIS level hardening you'd have to do on your own. I think from my perspective, the most exciting thing about it is just its minimal size and how much it'll speed up your boot times for instances. Anyone using Bottlerocket today? Vlad, have you kicked the tires on Bottlerocket yet?
Of course I did. I like it. It's minimal. It has some interesting security things, like if you actually want to connect to the node and integration with SSM and things like that. It blends into the low-level node setup, so I like it, and it's just faster and more custom built, more purpose built than a vanilla Amazon Linux. So I like it.
I haven't looked at Bottlerocket. What is it in a?
Well, the closest, honestly, it's Amazon's version of CoreOS. That's the easiest way of describing it. Do you remember CoreOS? Like it was built from the ground up just to run containers. Didn't even ship with a package manager, right? The package manager it shipped with was Docker. Like you want to run something, just run Docker. That's Bottlerocket. There's no, and for the record, there's no affiliation between CoreOS and Bottlerocket. Just conceptually, they're in the same.
So they didn't take CoreOS and then rebrand it and then
no.
licensing terms. Oh, okay, got it.
That would have been funny. Yeah. All right. Also, I saw this was funny. I am going to reinvent this year. Booked for, I believe, was it Wednesday through Friday. So if anyone's going to reinvent, please hit me up in a DM. It would be great to meet up. I also saw this. So if you aren't yet attending, but you want to attend, they provide you the email boilerplate you need to tell your manager why you're going to reinvent. So I thought that was kind of cool if you need some help justifying your trip. Also, this came up in my news feed. It looks like in a few days on Friday at 6 a.m. for me, Anton is doing his own deep dive into Spacelift. I don't know anything more about it. Anton, are you on the call? Not today? Not yet. All right. So I'm guessing he's going to do some live coding. He's good at that. Show you what that experience is like. Next announcement I had was this one. So this is I don't know, this was an interesting announcement, but not interesting announcement. So in our Cloud Posse RefArch documentation, one of the things we've recently gone to document for our customers was why we prefer AWS SSM for our use cases over Amazon Secrets Manager. And I think there's something that I'm missing fundamentally to appreciate some of these Secrets Manager updates, but also why this update wouldn't make me excited even if I was using it the way I thought, maybe in a way that would warrant having 500,000 secrets. So let me first introduce this topic here. So Amazon a long time ago came out with Amazon Systems Manager, Parameter Store, Systems Manager being like the product and Parameter Store being a service underneath that. So it's basically a simple key value store, and it's incredibly useful in infrastructure as code because you can use SSM to keep your parameters outputs from other modules that you can then query from other modules. One key thing is like if you're using Terraform with remote state, you can't query a wildcard of remote state using Terraform remote state on another root module. However, you can request a path of SSM parameters. So it's a really easy way to get unknown parameters back from SSM in Terraform. So that's one of the use cases that we use SSM. So SSM predates Amazon Secrets Manager, very easy to use, key value pairs. You can request a bunch of them back. Historically, the rate limits of SSM were very poor, and that's why we started looking for alternatives. However, for all practical purposes, those rate limits are now high enough that you don't need to worry about it. I think it's somewhere on the order, I thought it was 10,000, but I couldn't find that hard limit anywhere. It's at a minimum 3,000 parameters per second, which is pretty high for most use cases. Now, the pros with Amazon Secrets Manager have been that they were, first of all, purpose-built for managing secrets. And you could say it's Amazon's response to HashiCorp Vault, if you can even say that, because HashiCorp Vault does so much more, has all those integrations with every other cloud, with every other service, where Amazon Secrets Manager says, yeah, we got a Lambda, you can do it, just do it in Lambda. And that's not easy. So maybe if Amazon Secrets Manager had like a plugin ecosystem where that ability to rotate and generate credentials was built into Secrets Manager, I'd change my story on this. But without that, I don't think it's that cool. Both Secrets Manager and Parameter Store work really well with Kubernetes. You can use external secrets operator to replicate those into your Kubernetes clusters. And now to this announcement, like, why is it interesting that Secrets Manager supports 500,000 secrets now per account? So the way we've been predominantly using Secrets Manager or Parameter Store is for integration secrets with third-party services. We haven't been using it for, let's say, user-generated data coming from consumers of your applications. Like, let's say you have an application that integrates with GitHub and you require your customers to submit a personal access token. Great, you could use Secrets Manager for storing sensitive customer information. So this was kind of like why I think that they raised this limit to 500,000. But then I started thinking, wait, this is still too low to be even useful. Like, I mean, any larger site, you're going to have more than 500,000 secrets for any large consumer site. And this number of 500,000 is a big number, but it's not big enough to, I think, suit the kinds of customers that would be using it. So I don't know. Why is this an exciting announcement? Anyone? What are the other use cases you're seeing for Amazon Secrets Manager?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, well, in my case, I just use Secrets Manager as like the single source of truth for values that I want to store somewhere before I put them in Parameter Store. So, if I get some API key or something like that, then I will put it in Secrets Manager. The benefit for that is, it's one place, everybody can look there and see the value. Mm-hmm. The downside for that is Terraform does not allow you to easily move secrets from Secrets Manager to Parameter Store. So there's an external process that I have, basically a Python script that can move values from Secrets Manager into Parameter Store.
I mean, there's a UI for SSM as well. Was it that you like the ASM user experience better than the SSM user experience?
Not really. It's, I mean, some of it's historical,
okay.
that, Secrets Manager was just the first place that we stood on to put secrets. Okay. Parameter Store does have like some better features. One of the, probably the best feature they have is tracking value changes. So Secrets Manager doesn't out of the box show you who changed the value and when and what the last value was. But Parameter Store does that out of the box. Yeah, it's lovely.
That sounds like something I should add to this list of pros and cons. So
yeah,
Andy, if you can remind me, I'll update that. Cool.
There's so much not offense of the Secrets Manager that we didn't know it even doesn't have an audit trail of a value.
Really? Oh my God.
I mean,
all right,
it's what it is, right?
Max, I need your help to help me update this doc and add some of those things. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm glad that came up. All right, so the next announcement was just something that came up as we were prepping for office hours here. Vlad, you're mentioning ECS Fargate now supports Windows as a architecture. What, this is obviously very exciting for all the companies using Windows. It's not kind of the pool that we circulate in. So anyone excited about this can share some insights.
I think I'm the only one that's excited about this. I still have some Windows-only software that I have to use.
Okay.
I had to do weird hacks, including running it in Wine in containers on Kubernetes, and that kind of worked. So yeah, didn't enjoy that at all. But yeah, this really enables people that weren't necessarily doing cloud before to do cloud easily. So think .NET developers that yet have to move to .NET Core and .NET 6 that's gonna be launched, I know, in a couple months. They can now easily deploy their applications without having to stress about servers and server maintenance and how they're deploying to servers. It's a big force multiplier. It's a new service, So
I
it
thought
doesn't.
.NET Core, though, for example, cross compiles really well now to multiple architectures like Go. No?
It does. Well, yeah, you can run .NET Core on Linux. Well, .NET Core is no longer a thing. .NET Core was merged into vanilla .NET. So
Okay.
.NET 6 is the same thing and can run both on Windows and Linux. But
Yeah.
upgrading your apps to that takes a while and
Oh,
takes
okay. Okay.
testing
So
and
for
time and all
legacy.
that. Yeah, and this helps a lot.
Okay.
It makes
Cool.
it super, super easier, especially for folks having, I don't know, .NET 4 applications that they don't necessarily want to invest the time into upgrade them, but they hate the maintenance of Windows nodes. It's, again, as I was saying, it's a new service. It doesn't support, what was it, some options for storage. It doesn't support spot, so no spot pricing, only on demand and savings plans,
Yeah.
which is valid. I would have liked to see spot. But yeah, I'm super excited about it.
And ECS doesn't yet support M1, right? Or Mac OS, right?
Mac OS would be great.
Yeah, it'd be cool for builds.
I know it's not ECS, but in pertaining to Windows, my company's just starting to look into kubevirt. Is that something that anybody's looked at that might be able to provide any good information, offline or something?
Haven't building a virtualization API for Kubernetes.
So it's basically you can run like any kind of VM you want as a pod in Kubernetes. So we're looking into it for, the Air Force has this Big Bang secure software stack that is pre-authorized all over the place. So, lots of people want to use it, but there's people that are like, I have this Windows thing that it's only Windows, and how do I do this and still get all of this reciprocity and inheritance? It looks really interesting.
So yeah, basically it's extending Kubernetes to manage VM-based workloads, as it says here, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
So you can really just schedule anything you can throw in a VM, you can now also run under Kubernetes. And not as a way to architect things moving forward, but to move things that were already developed and bring them in under the fold of Kubernetes. That sounds cool.
I feel like
If
this sort of
anyone's-
workload would adopt the kind of persistent, like the same class of like lifecycle requirements that a database would have, right? Like you'd have to be careful about like for,
Of
like
course.
a lot of containers, you could just like full factor them, you just turn them off whenever, and then like signal 50 and everything, and then like spin up a couple of instances to take over the workload. I guess this would require a different sort of
yeah, you're dealing with very sensitive workloads suddenly on Kubernetes, probably, that are not designed to be resilient in the same matter.
Or that could be for the anti-cloud posse that want to take ownership of all the servers. Right? They don't want anything to be in the cloud. They want everything to be on premise. So they want to take ownership of the clusters. So that kubevirt could also play that role too.
The anti-posse. I like it.
Well, as we look into it more, I'll definitely kind of democratize what I find out, and if anyone else is using it, I'd love to chat.
Yeah, check back in and let us know what comes of it. So another update here was an exciting one for CloudFront, which adds the ability to customize the response headers based on policy controls. I was reminded that you can only do this previously using Lambdas, and well, that's not that much fun. So Vlad, what else would you like to add to this one?
Finally. It finally happened. It was really annoying because you had to use Lambda Edge or the recently announced CloudFront functions that don't run in certain cases, and it was just way, way, way more pain than it should have been. And now, finally, those can be easily set, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, just a fundamental capability you'd expect of a CDN that would let you modify request response headers easily. Cool.
How dynamic would this one be? Would it be like just static HTTP response headers, or you can dynamically assign them by paths? Or
Vlad, did you look into what you can do with the policies? I haven't gone that far.
Neither did I. I pretty much gave up on using vanilla CloudFront. I moved to Amplify console, and for actual programmatic usage, this wasn't that big. As far as I know, it's static, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, their example here looks pretty static. Yeah. But like forcing cores headers could be a nice example. Content protection. All right, so I think that's it for my announcements. Anybody else have any other interesting announcements you'd like to bring up before we move into Q&A? All right. Talking points. So last week, Sharif, I think you had a question we didn't get to. I'd like to cover it today. Sharif, are you around? Yeah, I see you here, Sharif. Cool. So Sharif asked, one of the questions was like, suppose that you have, well, I think the question from last week was this other one, maybe how to pass information between Terraform and the Helm Chart. Okay, we'll start in order here. So suppose you have a Kubernetes cluster per team. You would do, would you recommend creating a VPC per cluster, a VPC per stage, prod, staging, testing, and so forth? So I'll give my answer on this, and then we'll turn around and see what everyone else would recommend. The driving principle for how we think about everything at Cloud Posse for customers is to first think about what makes the most architectural sense, like from a perfect picture, not factoring in cost necessarily. And what I mean by that is symmetry. So things that are beautiful are inherently symmetrical, and things that are symmetrical are a whole lot more consistent to implement. There are less edge cases. They're harder to make mistakes, and you need to write less documentation also if you practice the consistency of symmetry. So I would first try and understand, why are we creating a Kubernetes cluster per team? And that might have just been an example, but I think it's important, first of all, to understand the underlying problem we're trying to solve, going back to the classic XY problem here. Should we even be doing what we are attempting to do here, or some other solution entirely? So it's asking about your attempted response to the problem rather than or your attempted implementation of a specific problem, but not necessarily what you're trying to solve. So going back to this question here, if it was a cluster per team, the first thing I would like to understand, well, is that team based on like a business unit? And then maybe should that business unit in AWS parlance be an organizational unit? How big is that team? So for example, if that's the case, then what we might be doing is creating an OU per team, and each team has its own dev, staging, production, sandbox accounts. And then each one of those accounts has its own VPC, its own EKS cluster. And what I like about this is now we have a symmetrical model where an account has one VPC, has one EKS cluster. And between dev, staging, and prod, that's the same. But does this make sense if you have 25 teams, for example? No, it probably doesn't. I mean, it depends on how large your organization is, but I'm going to venture to guess that it's not that large where it would warrant having that many clusters. The other consideration is economies of scale. So maybe what you really want are namespaces in Kubernetes per team or per developer or per some a partition there, but not a full-on Kubernetes cluster. And there's some interesting things. I haven't gotten to play around with it, but and it's because it hasn't become a use case for us. There's a operator that implements conceptually hierarchical namespaces for Kubernetes, and I believe something like this might make its way into the mainline of Kubernetes. Can't really hear you there, Sharif. So with hierarchical namespaces, it allows you then to logically relate namespaces in Kubernetes. Now, under the hood, it's just a flat namespace structure. So this is another operator that then helps you manage and visualize and apply policies at a hierarchical level. Basically, it's almost taking exactly the model that Amazon did with accounts. Accounts are flat. You can't nest accounts underneath other accounts. But then they added the construct of an organization and organizational units, and then that lets you now logically arrange accounts which are technically flat. It'd be cool if GitHub came up with something like this for GitHub repositories. So then it's like, would you do a VPC per cluster or a VPC per stage? So this comes down to other criteria, like what are you trying to simulate? Are you trying to empower teams to have as much autonomy over their networking stack as well as their cluster? In which case, yeah, probably a dedicated VPC. But then I would go back to this whole model where like maybe what you really want is the OU and the member accounts. And then would you have multiple EKS clusters in a VPC? My argument would be yes, but not for this use case possibly. Like to me, the use case that makes the most sense to have multiple clusters in a VPC is you're doing things still in a symmetrical fashion where you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 accounts that still have the identical VPC configuration or the identical cluster configuration. An example would be you're doing blue-green EKS clusters. That makes perfect sense that you would have 2 EKS clusters within the same VPC and you're flipping back and forth between them. Or you're having one EKS cluster that handles PCI transactions and the other EKS cluster that handles non-PCI transactions. So that way you have a clear delineation between those two. But having one EKS cluster per team in the same VPC, and then you don't have any other account with that same configuration. So now this account is a snowflake. That's what I don't like. Sharif, any other questions on that one?
He's got some stuff in the chat.
Oh, okay. The Zoom chat window?
Yeah.
All right, let me see here. I'm opening up the Zoom chat. Yes, everyone. Sharif, come on. Actually, the concern is that our workloads are a huge amount of very small containers, and we hit our IP limits per subnet so fast. Okay, yeah, that's a very different use case than any of the considerations that I brought up. So instead of sharding the clusters, we said we shard them by team, which makes sense. So yeah, and IPv6 support isn't quite there yet. And Kubernetes has its own upper limits of something like 6,000 containers per cluster, or has that limit grown yet? It seems so low now when I say it.
I don't know, it's very low.
That seems very low.
It does not sound reasonable or okay. I definitely ran more than
6,000
that
nodes
many
and
containers.
couple.
Oh,
hundred
6,000 nodes.
containers.
Sorry, I'm thinking about 6,000 nodes per cluster. I think that was the limit that it has historically had.
Yeah, I was gonna add this.
That's a
an
general
experience
use
that
case
might be
limit. It
useful.
doesn't apply. Like it depends a lot on your workload. GKE supports clusters up to 50,000 nodes. AWS is working on support for mega clusters as per the latest container day. So it shouldn't be a concern. But It depends. If you're doing a bunch of tiny nodes versus a bunch of big nodes, how many pause there are, how hard you're hitting the control plane, and so on and so forth.
You know, when I was at Pivotal and we were working on Cloud Foundry, we ran, I'm not sure if these are kind of in the same ballpark as you're talking about, Sharif, but we ran like something like 50,000 containers in a single network. So we had like a /16 for our Cloud Foundry container orchestration system, which is not Kubernetes, but from a broad perspective, it's a similar kind of container orchestration system. And the using like CNI to control how things would talk to each other really enables us to put everything into a flat namespace, a flat IP range, right? So I think one of the things about subnetting, this is kind of like a classic system administration problem, is that like really what there is to consider is the communication patterns that you want to enable, right? So like if you start from there first, like who's talking to what and what's talking to each other and how can I chop that up into the right domains, like that's the work that has to be mapped out before any reasonable architecture can be constructed. So like in a lot of our, for example, for the orchestration system that we're building, a lot of those communication patterns between the various microservices that constituted the Cloud Foundry, there was no need for a privileged network because they all spoke via secure channels. And like instead of, we substituted having a protected network by having SSL and authentication between every component. And that was good enough because you could kind of trade one for the other and say that you have this many layers of protection. So I'm not sure if this helps, but that's a real world example from my experience that might correlate some with you.
I was gonna add the original question. So the IP number of IVs is actually a valid concern. It usually just boils down to how well you can plan your size of a team or the amount of services they run. Because when you go separate clusters, you basically set up a separate subnet for every of them, and you should be playing the size of that subnet. And if you're not sure what size that will be, you just set up a larger subnet and put every clusters in that subnet so that they will just race for these IPs. So this is like a trade-off between quality of service for a team, where the other team can be eager for IPs and take them all, versus you separate them, but you have to be calculating well on the beginning. And I see the comments that saying that VPC like Calico can solve this problem.
Yes,
for you.
yeah, I was just going to suggest.
It's really it's not. It will be another trade-off that you do, because first of all, you have, when you start using Calico, you have to start monitoring your IP tables because you're now in charge of part of the networking stack that you run on. And second, when you run things like ELBs, you end up running in a node port mode where the traffic goes to a random node and then go through kubepproxy goes to particular pod IP inside CNI. So AWS doesn't know where your actual pod is, and it just randomly routes a inbound traffic to a random node, which then figures out through IP tables where to actually run it to. So you end up having a huge amount of traffic just running anywhere in your cluster, just like randomly flowing through all of the nodes and just ending up with a mess. And like,
which is only exacerbated as the cluster grows in size.
Yes,
then too.
Yes,
yeah.
A single service that having a lot of requests can drain the networking stack on every other node just because it just randomly routes everywhere. So yeah, Calico is like, it's a quick solution, but as usually you have so much trade-offs when you do a magic like this, so be careful.
Yeah, and there was the announcement on IPv6 support for backend targets for load balancers that came out. I think we brought that up last week on the office hours. Though Though the important caveat here at the very bottom, EKS does not support IPv6. So, all right, next question here. Also by Sharif. Sharif asks, how to pass information between Terraform and Helm charts, e.g., like a Helm chart deployed via Argo. So this is another good conversation to have. Also something that we talk about in our ref arch when talking about how to implement Argo CD. So one of the key things about Argo CD is that everything in Argo CD, well, Argo CD, all it ever does is Kubernetes. Like Argo CD doesn't speak, Terraform, doesn't speak general, like there's Argo CD workflows, which lets you do things like GitHub Actions. We can have an arbitrary workflow, but you wouldn't use traditionally Argo CD like to do deployments to SPA applications. I think I brought up like, here are some common use cases for deployments. Like you want to deploy Kubernetes apps to Kubernetes. You want to deploy Lambdas. You want to deploy like serverless framework applications or CloudFormation templates or single page applications or Terraform or perform database migrations. These are all frequent forms of deployments. Argo CD doesn't really do anything other than the first one. And you can Jimmy rig all the other stuff to run under Argo CD using a pattern, what I'm calling the operator pattern. So with the operator pattern, you find an operator. Let's see where I talk about it here. My computer's taking its time. Operator. I must have put it in a other document, I guess. So with the operator pattern, you basically find an operator that implements whatever kind of functionality you want to do. Here I talk about it. So this is where, to answer your question now specifically, Sharif, the way you do it is, remember what I was talking about, SSM versus ASM? Remember how I was saying that you can use Terraform to write parameters into SSM? Exactly. So we all comes full circle. So you have your Terraform, it's writing everything into SSM. Now, Argo CD deploys your resources to Kubernetes, and it deploys a custom resource for external secrets. So external secrets is a custom resource implemented by the external secrets operator. And external secrets can synchronize values from SSM or ASM. I think it supports 1Password even. It supports lots of backends, and it'll work with service account roles. So you can deploy the secrets, external secrets operator with a URSA role so that it can talk to SSM and get the parameters and write it to Kubernetes. Now, external secrets is a good example of where this pattern works very well with Argo CD. I just want to point out what our frustration has been using operators, that there's an operator out there for like everything, but most are abandoned. Most are not regularly maintained anymore. They've never received traction. And I'm not joking when I say this. Most of the operators I find were weekend projects by people who wanted to learn Golang. So they thought, oh, what do I want to do? Well, I know Kubernetes. I want to learn Golang, and what do I want to do? I want to implement an operator. So they come up with this really cool operator with 2 commits, and then you never see an update again. So I think there's like 5 operators out there to deploy Terraform under Kubernetes, but none are maintained other than the one by HashiCorp. And well, that operator requires that you subscribe to HashiCorp Cloud Enterprise to be able to use it. Also, when operators fail, it's a little bit ambiguous what your outcome should be. So let's take the case of external secrets operator. You've deployed your application. Your application is now waiting on the secret, and the secret is failing. It's not getting synchronized. Well, should you have not even rolled out your application altogether, or should you roll back, or what is the outcome, and where are you getting the reporting and the metrics for this secrets failing? Because that's coming from this external secrets operator. External secrets operator runs in a totally different namespace and just happens to be writing secrets to your namespace. So it's this problem where there's a lot of stuff happening all over the place, and that can get complicated. So Sharif in the chat was saying that he was looking at exactly using SSM to store the values plus external secrets. So you're on the right track. And it seems like there's a plugin under development to support Helm for Argo CD. You can deploy Helm natively with Argo CD today in application sets. We end up not doing that. We end up in our GitHub action workflows. We call Helm template to render the Helm template for the resources, and then we enrich them. For example, one of the things we also like to do is using SOPs operator, and with the SOPs operator, it lets you use SOPs by Mozilla. And with the SOPs operator, you can encrypt your secrets in GitHub. Encrypt your secrets, commit them to your version control, but it's very different from Gitcrypt, because with Gitcrypt, the whole file is opaque. You have no idea what's changing. When you're using the SOPs operator, I don't think there's actually a good example in here what the encrypted values look like. So this is what your file looks like before you encrypt it, and then after you encrypt it. I'm not going to look it up on the call here in the interest of time, but basically what happens is after you encrypt it, the values on the right-hand side are encrypted here and here and here. So that way, when you open a pull request to change secrets, you see what changed, as opposed to just, hey, a secret was changed in this entire file. So why I bring this up is, I don't know what you're trying to do specifically passing values between Terraform and Helm, but another way you could do it is by SOPs encrypted secrets.
I just posted an example of one from a event we did the other day.
Oh, awesome. So you started using it, Andrew?
I don't think we use the operator. We use the AWS KMS with Flux. Flux can reach out to AWS, I think, and
Okay.
it's something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but that's what a SOPs encrypted
So here's
file looks like.
So technically, if you have to encrypt your keys, you can do it, but we, for obvious reasons, we advise against it. And then SOPs can do it such that it only is encrypting all the values in your YAML, meaning it understands that this is a YAML file and it's encrypting the sensitive values. Now, not everything is going to be sensitive, possibly like requests and limits, and therefore, as a best practice, if I were doing this, I'd probably move those out of this configuration.
Yeah, this was a quick, something just thrown together for a like a
hackathon
right? Kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dash days. Cool. Defense unicorns. Dash days. What's defense unicorns, Andrew?
My new company.
Nice. Wait, your new company?
Yeah.
What is this? Your own company or?
No, I switched jobs a few months ago.
Switched jobs.
Yeah,
really?
that's why I haven't been around, because there was a company meeting at the same time as.
Oh, interesting.
As office hours.
Did you tell them to move the company meeting? Because
no, we got too big. I was employee number 13. Now we have like 25, and we were trying to do. It was a meeting with everybody all at the same time, and now they do a couple of smaller ones.
Yeah, Defense Unicorns is a pretty awesome name. Did you tell them just to join office hours instead? No,
I have mentioned it several times, but it hasn't been.
It didn't catch on yet.
It hasn't caught on yet.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm gonna wrap up that topic. Move on to my question now for everyone. is turning this around and asking for feedback on what you're all doing to support this. So one of the problems is when you upgrade EKS clusters and you're using add-ons, well, you can upgrade the EKS cluster and the add-ons are still out of date. And this is a problem because the add-ons might be managing like your CNI or kubedns or some of the other facilities there. So the way to, unfortunately, upgrading add-ons, well, it's easy. I mean, you're just going to be specifying the version of the add-on, but the problem is only kubeproxy matches the Kubernetes version, and even then, it's going to have the patch release and a suffix of the build, so it's not deterministic what any of these should be. So the way you find it today is you use the AWS EKS CLI and query, and here's like a query that our developers are using to get those versions. Problem is that I would like to automate everything, and yes, we could stick that in a shell script or do whatever, but can we do it in pure Terraform is more or less my question. I saw there is a data source for upgrading add-ons, or sorry, for getting the add-ons. Unfortunately, the cluster name is a required parameter. So it's not really, I think, what I want. What I want is be able to query for what are all the add-on versions for a given version of Kubernetes in Terraform. Anyone solved this yet, or have you solved it some other way?
I guess I ran into this problem before, but yeah, like you said, you need to run AWS CLI commands to get the correct values. I didn't find anything else, but yeah, this is a known problem actually.
Like it'd be nice if there was just a data source, like a YAML, like a public endpoint, we could just fetch and get a list of these values. So
yeah, there is none actually. As far as I know, actually, I'm not sure.
Vlad posts something here that they're working on something, or
you can run AWS EKS, I think, list cluster add-ons and specify a Kubernetes version, but that's not exactly.
Well, yeah. So that's what I'm sharing here on my screen, or I thought or a second ago I was here. So these commands here. By the way, this is the documentation from Ben. So thank you, Ben, for putting these commands in here.
Of course.
But yeah, let's see here what Vlad shared. One-click full cluster upgrade. Yeah, that would be nice. Is it talking about add-ons here? Allow placeholder to manage automatic updates for AWS EKS add-ons. Cool. I'm going to add these to our document.
Again, the issue is we're working on it, and reInvent is coming soon. I am hoping. I don't know. It's something.
Yes.
I'm hoping. The add-ons experience in EKS is not at all automation friendly, and I really, really look forward to that developer experience getting better.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's it for my questions. Let's see the Slack channel if there's any more questions that have been posted today.
I shared a link. I'm not sure if you see that before. Can you scroll up? Yes. Yeah, that one. That tree.
Oh, here? That tree.
Yeah, this.
What is this?
This is very nice, like a gateway for your Kubernetes configuration. So it's gonna block you from deploy something like with bad configuration or something like that. So I saw a lot of people nowadays use that, and it seemed pretty cool to me. Yeah, it's you add it to the pipeline, and then very
That's
benefits
cool.
from it.
Yeah. So static analysis on that. What I was going to say, I wonder if it'll prevent one thing that happened to us with a customer very recently. So when you're working with Kubernetes ingresses and WAF, one of the annotations you need to add is the WAF ARN, I think. And we had bungled that in one service. And that hosed the load balancer for every single service deployed, every single ingress. The whole site went offline because one service had a bad annotation for the ARN of the WAF. I wish those things were impossible.
Yeah, so annotations are of two types. One is exclusive and one is like per service. This is for the ingress one. And if you have exclusive one, you can specify it only once per whole cluster. You have to create that actual resource, but the annotation should be only.
Oh, there's a way to do that.
Per cluster, yeah, and you can obviously do that on a real ingress once, but then that ingress is in charge of every other ingress because it carries that setting for like that global setting for the whole ingress. So it's just better to organize it in a way where you set up some separate namespace with these settings and set up a non-existent ingress there, which only carries this annotation and no one ever touches it anywhere. So every other service is safe then.
Yeah. So other services can add ingress routes, but they can't affect the main ingress configuration.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the point.
That's cool. We should do that. We should look at that.
Yeah, I know. We even did something like that, but because of a bad naming, the engineer thought that service meant to be a playground or something like this. So he changed it.
Well, great, everyone. Looks well. In Zoom, no other questions as well. So last call for questions. Otherwise, I guess we can end a little bit early today.
Yeah, I've been looking into rumors about deleting API will arrive soon at the organization for the AWS organization. So now you got API for deleting accounts.
No way.
Yeah, and they're gonna announce it at the reInvent. That's my initial thoughts about it, but I guess they're gonna announce it very soon. Yeah.
Oh my God! Talk
and
about
also
the impact for automated testing then. And
yeah, it's awesome.
It'd be cool if you can pass a flag to force delete all resources in the account. So you could literally bring up an account, have everything in there, have a feature, force destroy an account. That would be sick. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing is that they're gonna restrict organization with a domain. It's like GitHub. When you in GitHub organization, you allow only the people with the domain to access your GitHub account or organization. So they're gonna do the same for AWS organization. And only with a specific domain, you will be able to create AWS accounts inside that organization, not with like general email or whatsoever. So yeah, that's another thing.
What's this merge queue thing? Has Sharif just shared, or who shared it? Sharif shared it. It was on my screen a second ago. It looks really interesting.
Well, actually, that was, I was looking at that last week. They announced it during GitHub Universe. And basically, if I understand, say if you're a maintainer on a repo and people are submitting merge requests and you have to look at each individual merge request separately, it basically queues them up so you can look at them in sequence. So you can, start at the top of the stack and kind of work your way down. So you're not, overriding merges or causing.
Gotcha. So you can actually process the pull request in a logical order that they should be merged. Nice. That's cool. Very cool. I'm still peeved that you can't have approvals outside of GitHub Enterprise. I wish approval workflows were in any edition of GitHub Actions.
For people with giant monorepos, this is a godsend.
Yeah, I bet. All right, any other interesting announcements like this one? Mergify posted about the GitHub release also. Mergify has had the, okay, so we use Mergify. We haven't been using Mergify for this capability. Lauren said that Mergify supports something like this separately.
I had one little thing, Eric. This is Eric Berg. I'm setting up a shared EFS volume for my Kubernetes cluster, and just wondering if anybody had any input on whether to manage the access points myself or let Kubernetes do it. I'm pretty green in the EFS area, so I'm at the point basically where I'm about to set up the access points and then point the the services to it.
You're using the EFS CNI, or no, sorry, EFS controller. Yeah, not CNI, but storage controller for it. Yeah,
CSI, right?
Yeah, CSI. That's what it was. Container storage interface. Yes and no. I can't just spout out like what we've done or would recommend, other than I believe our EFS component, which is our opinionated root module, is, we published that one. No, we've just published our EFS component. We might have an open pull request for our.
It was in there. It found it.
No, that's provisioning the actual EFS file system. So then we also have a Terraform component for deploying the CSI driver for Kubernetes to use that as a storage backend.
I've been all over your stuff on this, as usual.
But we haven't published that one yet. If you hit up maybe RB or somebody on Slack, you might get a little gift. Somebody asked if we have abandoned Helm file. That was in the Helm file channel. I wouldn't say we have abandoned Helm file, just we're not investing in it to the same degree. So Cloud Posse, we have our Cloud Posse Helm files repository here, where we've been managing releases for lots and lots of services. We've kind of cut the cord though, and all of these are kind of backing level services for things in Kubernetes. Almost all of these require an IAM role. Almost all of these require some other thing provisioned in AWS. So we have just started doing it in pure Terraform. So if you want to see an example for now how Cloud Posse is deploying with Terraform Helm releases instead of using Helm file, we have a couple good examples. If you go into Terraform AWS components, you go into modules. One example is the ALB controller. So the ALB controller was just updated a couple of weeks here, or upstreamed rather a couple of weeks ago. And if you take a look at this, it's using our Cloud Posse Helm release module for AWS. That module exists to address one of the most common patterns when deploying Helm releases, is you also need an IAM role for it. So it's opinionated for AWS, and it supports creating the IAM role for the service when you deploy it, and has a Helm file like interface in that it supports a values block. It supports specifying all the versions and a lot of the same parameters that you would get if you're using Helm file. Let's see here. Yes, so we support a values block, so you can then also pass in any arbitrary other values you want to pass through. All right, well, we are over time for today. Thank you everyone for all your questions and participation. We're gonna host our next office hours next Wednesday, same time, same place. If you head over to youtube.com/c/cloudposse, again, that's youtube.com/c/cloudposse. You'll be able to find today's recording in a few hours, as well as all of our past recordings. If you haven't yet subscribed to cloudposse.com/officehours, you can head over there, subscribe to our podcast. We have a syndication of all of our past episodes, and go ahead and add me on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Head over to linkedin.com/in/Oscar. Great. See you all next week, same time, same place.